Right, well, I'm back from Bathurst. Had a pretty wet week up there. Back streaming again for your TS3 Touring Cars Championship and TS2 as well. So, you know, as I've had a bit of gallivanting around the world and stuff like that, Bathurst was pretty alright. And now I'm back in the com box with the lovely good old Mr. N-Spud P666, mate. How's it going? Yeah, well, fingers crossed he able to get out in time, but I just realised I didn't have you on the settings fixed, so that's fantastic, but that's all good. Yeah, so he's dropped down from TS2, and yeah, it's a bit odd that he hasn't gone out for a lap because they've got 3 minutes to go, but maybe he might be doing a bit of a one-lap dash or starting from the back, you know, the good old start from the back and see how far I can get up the pack.
We are getting in towards the latter stages of the TS3 tour. From race 2, so of Deep Forest Raceway here in Switzerland. So we're going from the USA back over to Europe in Switzerland, and Renegade is just negotiating the final corner, which, funnily enough, DJ, that was actually not part of the layout back in the old GT days.
I was going to say, I don't remember having a hairpin there. That's
no, the hairpin was a late feature in GT7. It actually kind of swept. It was kind of like more of a sweeping corner, so they actually could keep the momentum from the exit of the tunnel. And it was just like a banking curve from what I remember, and then it just led onto this front straight, as we see Venti SS Gaming actually on an out lap, so he's not setting any representative times. But so far, looking at the top of the grid, we see Rick Green on provisional pole position with Renegade in second place, and Flybalding, the man on form over the past few rounds, is sitting nicely in third place, and Latigator also showing some good form in fourth place as well.
Yeah, it's good to see Latigator finally starting to move up the pack a little bit. He's obviously had a bit of a rough start to the season, but we're trying to get him and Venti to move into TS2 next year. But if they're not ready, we won't push them up. But yeah, it's good to see that Latigator's moving up the grid a bit. I'm just surprised on how spread out the pack is, but like in regards to the times. But a couple of the cars seem to be a little bit close here. In regards to how they're running and stuff like that, so that's probably not ideal, but I guess, you know, they're trying to get the slipstream or something like that. I'm not really sure, but yeah.
So there you go, you could see Nightmare actually improve her lap time with a bit of a slipstream from Ben Stick, who's sitting in 6th place. Isa Nightmare in 8th place, so she gets escorted a little bit wide, but looking back at the timing sheets, we see Renegade take that provisional pole away from Rick Green, but now Rick Green's actually taken that back, so a bit of chopping and changing at the top too. And then we see a surprise in that 24k gold from the MSR camp. So finally enough, DJ, we're not seeing meat and cheese pie on the grid this evening. So in return, we see his younger brother making the step up into TS3 for the second time after scoring a wonderful pole position in race 2 at Bathurst but now is settling himself nicely inside the top 3.
Yeah, it's good to see. Oh, it's obviously not good to see Meat and Cheese out of this weekend, but yeah, you know, he's still holding up the family legacy is something you could say, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I wonder how did they recover after their bit of an incident at Bathurst.
Yeah, there was a bit of a family rivalry amongst those two, and from what I heard was someone got a black eye. I won't know who it was, but I don't know who that was. But hey, you know, bit of family love amongst those two. But as we get towards the end of qualifying, Renegade doesn't improve his lap time. Latergator has, and he moves himself up into P3 with that 24k gold in 4th. So we have 2 Nissans and 2 Lexus occupying the first 4 grid positions, with Flyboarding in 5th place and Oz Tormentor in 6th place. And then the first of the Hondas, I believe, is Ben Stick 7 in 8th place. Yes, so Ben Stick in 8th with his teammates SS Boy and NZL Cowboy outside the top 10 in 11th and 12th place. And it's racing, like you said, just out there, starting from the back, just to see how far he can move up the grid. But it's a good start for Rick Reen, taking out pole position for race 1, and it's desperately what he needs after seeing Renegade outscoring him in the championship over the last few rounds.
Yeah, I think Rick Reen has had a bit of a rough trot lately. He's with, obviously, whether it be personal mistakes or mistakes with other cars. My apologies, I just need to. Oh, the sneeze went away. Yeah, he's it was right there, and then it just went away. But yeah, he's done. Hasn't had the best run lately, I don't think. In regards to when he first joined. But seeing him up the top, up the pointy end, is probably one place where he wants to go. All pole position is on the outside of turn 1. That's not ideal at all.
So I'll wait and see what Rick Reen can do at the start of this Grand Prix. We are live round 11 at Deep Forest Raceway, the return of the folklore of Deep Forest, the Gran Turismo histories back on GT7, and we are underway. Lights out, green flag racing. Rick Reen's got himself a beautiful launch there, and that 24k gold has actually overtaken, I believe that was Latergator, and so has Flyboarding, and contact made between some of the drivers. Not so sure who that was, but looked like gold was punted by somebody, and that actually escorted Flyboarding a little bit wide. But so far, not too much damage has happened between those guys, and the top 2 stay the same, with Ice and Nightmare actually having a really poor run, and then a debutant in Miller inside the top 7. But we're seeing a lot of chopping and changing with a lot of drivers trying to find their positions in the opening lap.
Yeah, he's got his blinker on here, and I like the little sticker or decal that he's got on there that just says honk on the back. These cars don't have horns, but yeah, it's good to see that there wasn't a big massive accident there, so that was good to see there. So It's Racing's moved up here into 8th place, so he's gone from 13th to 8th, so he's made a good start. I think he made 3 positions off the start, which obviously was probably what he wanted, so he could kind of get away from the back of the pack. But you know, anything's possible with the rest of these. They go 3 wide through the hairpin. That's incredible.
So It's Racing just trying to keep his head down, trying to find and see if he can get his teammate to help him out with a tow. But It's Racing taking the inside line, and then Latergator's trying to help out It's Racing to get a bit of a tow down the back straight, but still holding on into 7th place there. Latergator in 6th, but the guy that's still leading the way is Rick Reen with Ice and Renegade. That 24k gold in 3rd place. And Oz Tormentor's actually moved up a couple of positions from the opening lap, so that's a good sign. That's good sights to see for Tormentor, as he's sitting 3rd in the championship ahead of Meat and Cheese Pie. But with Meat and Cheese Pie missing this round, he'll definitely gain some more points on his rival. And then we have Flyboarding inside the top 5, and as we were back from 6th, 7th and 8th, the positions haven't changed, with It's Racing not being able to make the move, and now he actually has done inside the tunnel. So that's It's Racing from 13th to 7th place with only a lap and a half done, DJ.
Yeah, he's making some pretty big gains there. Venti's also moved up into 8th place here, making a run on Miller. He's got a very sleek and simple livery there, Miller does. But yeah, I think they're keeping it clean here, which is really good to see. Obviously, they haven't had the best of runs lately at the start. We saw some pretty big accidents going on and stuff like that. But yeah, they're all doing pretty well. I think he just dropped another position there to Benstick. So first of the Hondas in Benstick's up into 9th place, and I think SS Boy Cowboy's actually overtaken SS Boy.
Yeah, so it looks like it's not been the best runs as of late for the Honda NSXs, as we see Miller go for a late move on Benstick 7. He makes the move inside of him and makes it stick there, so Benstick now relegates himself into 10th place. But I was going to say, not being the best of runs for M&R DJ over the last few rounds, considering where they were in the first half of the season. They're actually challenging the drivers for podiums and for wins, especially SS Boy and Benstick, who both scored a 1-2 back at Daytona. So they both scored some really good points, as we see Miller get himself a 1-second penalty. Obviously, probably taking too much of the shortcut in the first sector. But yeah, a little bit of a struggle streak for M&R in the second half of the season.
Yeah, they definitely, I think after Daytona, or it was around Daytona or somewhere there, they did start to drop off a little bit, which obviously we don't want to see. But Benstick's kind of holding up his part of the fort there in the lead car so far. But Cowboys actually started to go back. Oh, who's this? Fly Balding had a bit of an accident here. Well, I'm not sure whether it was turned or not, because we can't have the option of replays, so that's not exactly ideal. But yeah, it's probably not what flyboarding wants at this point in the race, being lap 3 of 12.
Yeah, he's a very unfortunate driver, unfortunately, for flyboarding. He's been showing some good pace, especially back at Watkins Glen, as considered as one of his stronger rounds, despite what the results said. But he's one of his stronger rounds at Watkins, and then especially back at, I would say, that was Trail Mountain last week, where he actually scored a podium for Robo Sport Racing. So he's had some good form over the last few rounds, but obviously we kind of used to seeing him down towards the latter half of the top 10 or just inside the top 10. So it's a bit of a hit and miss of what we can say with flyboarding this season, as he's starting to learn the racecraft amongst his peers in TS3, and as well as just trying to push that Robo Sport Racing Nissan up towards the front.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a good driver, but yeah, as you said, he's been getting some bad luck, which obviously, as a driver, you don't really want to have or want to see. So it's not exactly something that we like to see. We obviously like to see everyone have an equal kind of chance at scoring as best they can. But he's kind of just got to. I think I caught someone having a massive slide there. I think that was SS Boy, but yeah, he's there's not really much else you can do. You just kind of see if you can try to stay out of it. But it's racing, I guess, and incidents happen, and we just move on. But
yeah, absolutely, and it's all about just trying to find that momentum and just trying to get your feet back on the ground, and especially get yourself ready for race 2, as we see It's Racing challenging Tormentor for 4th place. So it's good progression that we're seeing from the It's Racing boss in the It's Racing Esports Lexus. A different colour scheme compared to what his teammates are running in Venti and Latigator, so a bit of a red and white livery for the Lexus driver. Very, very odd to say he's a Lexus driver in TS3, but would rather see him in a Honda, hashtag, Honda OP. But we can see, It's Racing coming onto the back of Tormentor, getting a little bit of benefit off the slipstream. So I will say the Lexus is a little bit more powerful down the straight and a little bit better on the brakes, as we see It's Racing go for the move onto the hairpin, or just runs that a little bit too deep. It doesn't score Tormentor too wide, just kind of puts him off a little bit just to try and go for a switchback move. But It's Racing makes that move stick and clean, and that promotes him up into 4th place, and Oars Tormentor down in 5th. So Tormentor's got a little bit of work to do to try and catch up to the back of It's Racing, to try and challenge the likes of that 24k gold and even the top 2 in Rick Green and Renegade.
Yeah, he's got 7.8 seconds to Rick Green, so I think Rick Green may be a bit of a stretch, considering he's only lapping. Well, as I say that, he goes purple through sector 1, so essentially he's lapping the same times as Rick Green. So I think probably position 1 might be a bit of a stretch, but if he gets anywhere close to 24k gold, he may be on for a podium here. But never say never. Anything can happen, and that lead can definitely come down. You know, he might make one little mistake and that may all come undone. But yeah, I think, you know, I think that, I don't know if he actually said that he wanted to do the whole rear to the front kind of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. As he's getting himself a lot closer to 24k gold, the sole MSR driver in the Lexus. So it's good to see that car out on track. But I was gonna say, like, the lap times are kind of where we kind of expect them in the TS3 field. So we got It's Racing obviously as one of the top drivers in the Trackstars Racing Series Championship. That he's getting himself into the 1 minute 19.1s. But we actually ran a practice round where It's Racing actually hosted on Thursday, and we even saw the likes of Diswood and John and myself actually go on track and just test the cars out. And I think the fastest that we saw, or that at least that I saw from John, was actually a 20, actually an 18. Oh, as I try to catch that, he loses a bit of drift there, and that 24k gold goes sliding around after making contact with It's Racing. So very unfortunate, as he's just trying to get that car into a 3-point turn, the longest 3-point turn that you see in a Group 2 car. But that drops him down from 9th place after being on the podium's positioning, so he wasn't ready for It's Racing. But I was going to say, yeah, from Thursday's lap times, we're seeing the fastest one I saw was actually an 18.3 set by John. So you could definitely see how much these cars can be pushed, and obviously with John being one of the top drivers in Gran Turismo, you could say for some of the drivers they're actually not too far away from getting that lap time and actually putting their best efforts.
yeah, you know, it's in there. We're seeing 20s and 21s, which is obviously, you know, as you said, roughly about the times we're looking for, because, you know, some drivers obviously aren't the same speed as others, but to have them all reasonably within each other is definitely good. But, you know, I just want to come back to Rick Green here. You know, he's pulled out 2.8 seconds to Renegade here, so that's definitely something that I'd say that he would want to do. You know, granted, what he's done so far, and as I say that, he goes nearly 3/10 faster through Sector 1, so he's definitely starting to find some pace in this car at this track, so I think that's probably a good thing.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you an interesting fact, DJ. The last time he actually won a race in TS3 was back at round 4, and we're on round 11, so that was the last time that the Car 69 Triple R's Motorsport Rick Green, the championship leader, actually took a victory in the TS3 championship.
Yeah, wow, that's a very long time ago, considering we're at round 11. But oh, he misses that apex there. That's not exactly ideal there, my friend. Yeah, that's. Oh man, I'd, you know, if that was me, I'd be like, yeah, wow. But then again, I haven't probably won anywhere other than the Enduros since probably around 4 or 5. So
yeah,
no,
exactly.
I mean,
that was back at Spa actually. So round 4 was the Spa Sprint. So that was the last time he took his victory in race 1. Before he actually made his debut in TS3, he actually clean swept the Dragon Trail Seaside Sprint. So a full 150 both races, a maximum 300 points that you can get in the TS3 Touring Cars Championship, as he's just starting to unsettle the car a little bit too much, and it's just starting to get a little bit tail happy, and that's where Renegade is just trying to close up a little bit. He's driving the car a little bit smoother on this last lap compared to what Rick Green's doing, so he might be just overdriving it just a slight touch. So, and Renegade's just not letting go, just keeping himself within that 2.5 to 3 second gap.
Yeah, it's, you know, you can't push these cars once they start to wear on the tyres. It's definitely something that I think we've noticed over the last probably 2 or 3, 4 years that we've been racing GR2s together. Not only in the league, but just, you know, just for mucking around. So, you know, they're definitely demons of cars, and you know, you over push them and then they'll bite, which is not what you want. So, you know, you just kind of got to really settle down a little bit. And as you say that, he pulls out 6/10 to Renegade. So he's finding something now. I think he's got his head back down and settled and saying, okay, I'm up the front now. We'll try and go for a faster slap here, but without trying to wreck the car. So, you know, it's obviously probably good for Rick Green, where he's sitting at the moment, but maybe not for Renegade. I don't know if Renegade is wanting Rick Green in front of him.
No, definitely not. As the form has actually been going towards the ice racing group man in the car 575. So the man that's a little bit more on form compared to Rick Green in the latter half of the championship. So he's just wanting to try and get us ever so close to Rick Green and actually be ahead of him at every round, just to close the margin between him and the championship, which stands at less than 100 points. But we're going to give a few honourable mentions here in this race. We're going to go back to 5th place with I believe that is Latigator. So sitting in the top 5 very nicely for Latigator car 29. And then also another surprise is the debutant in Miller. I believe he came from, he's actually one of Venti's mates from the Formula 1 game. So it's actually good to see him make the transition into GT7 for a couple of races. And he's doing himself a really good job, car 44 in 7th place. And Fly Balding has actually moved himself up towards the front. So we saw that accident on lap 4, and now we see Fly Balding back inside the top 8. So good recovery drive for Fly Balding, keeping that head down and not losing hope for a bad result. And then we see 24k gold after having a bit of an incident with It's Racing around the outside in the first sector. Obviously, clean move by It's Racing, but I think 24k just got a little bit flustered on what It's Racing was going to do and just maybe overstepped the mark just a little bit, with Venti SS Gaming inside the top 10. Then Cowboy, SS Boy and Ice Nightmare rounding out the drivers outside the top 10, with Rick Green still leading over Renegade with only 2 laps to go. DJ, what's the secret 24k go a little bit too deep. So what do you think, DJ? Like a track like this, it is very hard to actually find your braking marks, especially with the wind direction. I don't know if you tried it with both headwind and tailwind. What are the differences that you can see in the braking markers between TS3 and actual main series?
Well, if GT7 could kindly piss the wind off, it would be fantastic. I haven't done it with a headwind, but I've done it with a crosswind and a tailwind. And man, that tailwind into that hairpin, oof, that's not something I'd
it
like.
is scary, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, you brake at your normal marker, and next minute you're off into the green stuff because you're like, hang on a minute, why is my car not stopping? Oh, okay, I've got a 3 meter per second wind behind me. Okay. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. The whole weather factor that they brought in for this game is definitely an interesting one. But you know, I haven't run a TS3 car around here, so I'm not exactly sure how it is. But you know, the main series car is definitely a beast to handle, considering we also have the big wing come in factor in this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, especially with that big wing, we kind of like the TS3 rear wings that we see on these cars, that they're braking just that little bit earlier despite the low aero downforce. So we kind of say like our cars are similar to a TS3 car, but with the better downforce package and obviously the more horsepower compared to these cars. So I will say I've actually done practice with a tailwind going down into turn 1. I will say that is very scary indeed.
Yeah, well, it looks like it's nearly a tailwind into one. It's just kind of a bit of a cross tail kind of thing. It's still a very weird kind of wind at the moment. So yeah, I've noticed it as well through the middle sector. It definitely plays havoc as well. You know how the car handles and behaves, but I think it's just a whole general thing. But I didn't realise they're on the last lap. How good! Wow. But yeah, Rick Green gets his win since round 4. So that's a nice job there from Rick Green. Renegade getting P2. It's Racing P3, all the way from the back of the grid. Oz Tormentor P4. Later Gator P5. Miller, the debutant, getting P6. So that's a pretty outstanding job there.
Yeah, definitely, and one-upping his good mate Inventi in sitting in 9th place. So to round up the rest of the grid, Benstick, the fastest off the Hondas, the only Honda team in the TS3 touring cars field, with M&R Motorsport Network Racing in 8th place, Venti in 9th, and then that 24k gold after sitting 3rd is demoted into 10th place with Cowboy, SS Boy, and Nightmare rounding up your 13 drivers, with a couple of drivers missing this evening, but that's all right. You know, obviously life situations come first. But I guess the best situation that we can have in this race, DJ, is actually Rick Green finally taking victory after so many rounds away from the winner's circle.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely something that I know he would be happy about. So I guess that's a good rounding out there for the Triple R Motorsport driver. Um,
Yeah,
mm,
absolutely. So good victory for the Triple R Motorsport, paying homage to their good mate in WJF, who sadly lost his life a couple of months ago. Obviously, putting that car number 18 that he ran back in Trailblazers, who are a sister series that runs on weekdays. Obviously, paying tribute to the man that was part of the Triple R Motorsport camp and unfortunately lost his life a couple of months ago. So there's who's doing him honors and doing him proud after getting himself victories and seeing that number on the track again, like I see it on the weekdays in Trailblazers, is always good to show representation, as you guys do yourself in the It's Racing Esports with a couple of commemorative names on the It's Racing bonnet. I've seen a few times as well.
yeah, obviously that was Brando's father. He did pass away, unfortunately. So we just ran him on the main series cars for 2 rounds. So definitely, I don't know, it kind of hit a bit different when we won Bathurst. I think, we clean swept all the stints at Bathurst, and then we got the outright win. So I think that was a bit of a tribute to his dad, because obviously Brando did say that Bathurst was his dad's favourite race, so it kind of just hit a little bit different
Yeah.
in that regard. It's obviously paying tribute there, and that was also some late news as well. Unfortunately, we've actually had a main driver lineup change in the It's Racing camp. So racing was getting a bit much for Brando, so unfortunately he just stepped away from main driving. So we've actually promoted John into main series, and we've had a bit of a number swap too. So he's gone from the 34 to the 27, and yeah, John's moved up into main series, which actually pulls him out of the title fight for TS2.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will analyse the TS2 standings as we get to that broadcast. But stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back in a couple of minutes' time to bring you race 2 qualifying for the TS3 Touring Cars Championship Round 11 here at Deep Forest Raceway. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with you guys very shortly.
Alright, we are back and we are live. I need to start my timer for the qualifying. For qualifying 2 for the TS3 championship here at the fantastic picturesque Deep Forest Raceway. So it's definitely a very interesting layout of a track. You know, the tuning of the car is definitely something else. I will say that.
Yeah, tuning for main series around this track isn't the easiest, I will say. Like it's taken me plenty of goes just to find a decent tune or a tune that I'm, at least happy with. To actually go around the track 29 times in one race or 2 races. it's not the easiest thing to do, but to muster up. But you get the likes of the tuning masters, tuning pros like Just Wood, Speedy Tires, Radingman Forehead as well. Even yourself and I, we're usually a little bit more on the tuning sides of things. We know our tunings compared to obviously the other drivers in TS2, TS3. So luckily these guys don't have to worry about tuning. But maybe, if we have a new series coming in next year, maybe there might have to be a bit of tuning going on in all categories. You never know. We'll find out.
Well, when we decide to go to iRacing, we won't even be touching this game. Yeah, so look, I'm not the best at tuning. I kind of just wing it half the time and just hope for the best. But yeah, obviously they don't have to worry about tuning here, and it's kind of just really run what you brung.
Yeah, exactly.
So they just go out there, have some fun, and don't have to worry about testing through the week and all that, trying to find how the car behaves and all that kind of stuff. Oh, 24k gold is 8. Oh my lord.
That was a shunt and a half.
Oh my lord.
Wow.
Oh jeez.
Driver's not having a good first lap there, unfortunately.
I don't even know why they're going that wide at turn 1. You shouldn't even be there. That's luckily they don't have damage.
Not the best first lap for those guys to be getting themselves their first hot lap in for race 2, but dude, all meant to go a little bit too deep there, so a little bit of carnage going on in the TS3 qualifying 2, as we see Cowboy just being held up slightly there by Ice and Nightmare. So if I was Nightmare, I'd just definitely back off a little bit. Let the guys that are on their fast lap, you had a crash, and it's just better to just pull away, or even better just teleport back into the pit lane and start again. But NZL Cowboy on his flying lap in settling in so far, currently P9, obviously not sending a lap time in. So I think we yet to see some good. I think actually Cowboy's best performance from what I remember was actually P7. I believe that was actually I don't know if it was in Spa or Red Bull Ring. I believe Cowboy had a good run in the M&R, actually outscoring his teammates in one of the races. So he's a little bit not under his performance that we would normally see Cowboy, but obviously he's a driver that's learning, and M&R have that program of running drivers that are learning, especially the guys mainly occupying the TS3 field, with one of their drivers being in TS2. So maybe one of the drivers from M&R from TS3 may be promoted up into TS2 next year. We'll find out and wait and see. But so far, in the middle of qualifying, we've got It's Racing on provisional pole position. Rick Green in 3rd, with his title rival actually in Renegade in P2 with only about a minute and a half to go.
Yeah, there's a minute 20 to go, so it's probably only going to get one more lap in here. So yeah, I think Renegade's just chilling behind Balding, trying to get a bit of a slipstream going on, but at the same time it may provide that he's impeding himself. So anything is possible, and you have to brake a little bit earlier in the slipstream and something like that. But we'll just wait and see, because I think he might be on for pole here. No, 20.3. So they've got 45 seconds to go. So.
Oh, and he just outbraked himself into going into turn 1, so that looks like that's Renegade's lap over and done with. Yeah, just clipping the grass there. So Renegade's lap is over and out, but Rick Green still sitting behind him, P3. I don't think he's crossed yet. Venti actually is now actually say that Rick Green's actually gone through with the first. Is that an 18 or is that still in the 19s?
It's a 19.7, so it's 2 tenths faster than It's Racing, but I didn't see that sector split just there. So Yeah, anything's possible, but at the moment, who's the lead driver? It will be Balding, so he will take the checkered flag for qualifying 2 here. So it's going to be.
We'll see a couple of surprises as well, DJ. We see Venti actually in 4th place, so that's actually his best qualifying of the evening, to be up into 4th place if things stay where they are. So 2 Eds Racing cars inside the top 4, Latergate out in 6th place, so 3 inside the top 6, which is a great outcome for It's Racing Esports, trying to promote their drivers to move up towards the higher tiers, with Venti settling very nicely in 4th place and looking to get a good benefit of the tow from a Renegade on this flying lap as It's Racing goes off to the side there, has a little bit of a power nap before he gets ready for race 2. But Rick Green coming around the final turn, or not the final turn, the most crucial part of the track, DJ, the hairpin, the dreaded hairpin, trying to brake a couple of meters too late, you're going to run the car too wide. If you brake a little bit too early, you're just going to turn in too much and take that inside curb. So finding the perfect braking marker is very difficult for these drivers.
Yeah, I think it's just not only these cars. Sorry. It's really kind of any car. Just struggling to find the balance of that hairpin. So it's a very interesting one, obviously, as you said, considering it wasn't in the. Well, as you say that, it bites Cowboy.
Yeah, he broke a little bit too deep there, did NZL Cowboy. But we did see a couple of good improvements there. We saw, I believe that 24k gold actually move himself up into 7th place. We actually see Miller inside the top 4, so he actually bumps off Venti SS Gaming. So Miller in 4th place and Venti drops down to 5th. And I believe that's only the adjustments that we've seen. But again, DJ, 2 out of 2 for Rick Green. Can he go for the double to secure not only a race victory but another clean sweep round victory?
Look, anything's possible, to be honest. We've seen that in the past, and you know, it can be possible, but maybe he might get a bad start, or someone might get a better start. There's a lot of factors that can come into play.
So for the final time here in Trackstar's TS3 Touring Cars at Deep Forest Raceway, we have Rick Green taking pole position yet again, just like he did in race 1. Can he take out the victory and make it a clean sweep for Triple R Motorsport? It is lights out and green flag racing. A beautiful jump there, beautiful launch there by Rick Green in 1st place. Then we have Miller going on the inside of Renegade. That 24k gold to actually get himself some ripper starts there. And we're going to see some moves nice and early. We see Tormentor getting a bit punted off there by a driver. I'm not so sure who that was, but he's actually been spun around yet again. So this is a theme that we saw from Tormentor 2 races in a row. In race 2, back at Trail Mountain, he actually got sent a little bit too wide into the 1st sector. He actually got punted off, and that dropped him to the rear of the grid. So now we see the M&R boys coming together, Cowboy and SS Boy. It's a little bit more of a chaotic start here in race 2, but the man that's still leading the way is Rick Green in 1st. It's Racing in 2nd, Renegade in 3rd, and Miller staying in 4th place. So the top 4, as you were at the end of qualifying. As he gets tagged by Flyboarding, there's a Flyboarding with a late dive bomb move on Miller there. So Flyboarding just getting that move done ahead of Miller. Getting a little bit all out of shape there, but Miller's going to try and go for an inside move with Venti SS Gaming lurking behind. And then he's got 24k gold going for an inside move, and Miller decides to go later on the brakes compared to Flyboarding. Does Flyboarding run the car a bit wide? But Miller gets that spot. Beautiful racing there by Miller. Great overtaking. So he takes back 4th place and Flyboarding in 5th.
Yeah, that's some good scrap that these guys are having here. They're not really hitting each other off. Obviously, Tormentor at the start did get punted from behind. I don't know who that was. I didn't quite catch it, but yeah, and then 24k gold had a bit of shoulders out with Benstick going through turn 3, 4, 5. So it's definitely an interesting one here with like racing lines and where cars come off and hit walls and all that kind of jazz. So yeah, it's so far so good. Obviously, not for Tormentor, but he's starting to make his way back onto the back of SS Boy here.
Yeah, he did struggle a little bit in race 2 in Trial Mountain. He was just making a lot of crucial mistakes. Actually wasn't getting himself into the rhythm in the zone and setting what lap times we saw in race 1. So Tormentor for the 2nd time running in race 2 is having a bit of troubles with that opening lap kerfuffle with some of the cars around him, but sitting in last place, hoping to make his move up the grid as quickly as he can. Later Gator actually was involved in one of those incidents, so he's dropped down to 10th. Isa Nightmare, I believe, could have been one of the victims to escort one of the drivers out wide into turn 1. I'm not too sure. We'll keep an eye on that. She actually just runs a little bit too deep going into the hairpin there. So we see a yellow flag there. That is Venti. So Venti's gone spinning around on the exit of the hairpin. He's actually done it again. So that's twice he's gone for a full 720 as Venti SS Gaming. He drops down to 13th in the last place, and not the race that he wanted to remember after starting in P6 for the start of this race after almost getting P4 at the end of that qualifying stint. But he drops down to 13th and he's got a lot of work to do. But on lap 3 of 12, Rick Green still leading its racing ahead in first and second place. Renegade not far behind, just lurking in the background inside the top 3, and this is going to become very crucial for Rick Green to hold off a 4 times Touring Cars champion.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a bit of a hard work here from Rick Green. Obviously, he didn't have Renegade pressuring him so much, but we've also had a bit of intel from It's Racing that he's got to take the hairpin one-handed, because as far as I know, he does use a formula wheel, so he can't, rotate his hands around the wheel, and he's got to, take one hand off, and it probably overcrosses himself. So yeah, he said he's got to take it as a one-handed. So
wow, that's an interesting one. It's kind of like, it kind of reminds me of the Lowe's hairpin at Monaco, where drivers actually have to go full lock on their Formula 1 wheels, and you can actually see drivers really doing the crossover on their Formula 1 style rims. So it's very tricky, but that hairpin as well, I don't know how it is for some wheel drivers. Do let us know in the comments, what is it actually like to take that hairpin on a full wheel, because I can imagine how much lock you guys are putting on your wheel simulators.
Yeah, obviously, myself and yourself are on controller, so
we can't give any intel on that.
But yeah, so we just kind of hook the joystick left and hope it sticks and turns. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
a lot different for us, but also tuning wise, it's a lot different for us as well. So
yeah, definitely. And looks like we see Renegade with a 1 second penalty there, so he's definitely taken too much of a shortcut in the first opening corners of Sector 1, so he's going to be serving that for a little while, but he's got himself a good buffer over flyboarding in 4th place. That 24k gold has actually moved up into 5th place, actually getting himself clear away from Miller and Benstick 7 and the likes of those drivers behind him. So inside the top 5 for 24k gold after what was looking like a good P3, P4 in race 1. Unfortunately got onto the receiving end. Oh, someone went deep there. That was Miller. Wow. Yeah. Nearly took out 24k gold after that late braking. That was an incredible braking stability that he had there. Surprised he didn't take him out.
Yeah, I think whether or not he kind of tried to take a bit of evasive action or something, I'm not overly sure, but yeah, he did well to avoid him. But he might be having his bit of shoulders out and trying to push a little bit harder. But Renegade's actually dropped into the 18-second bracket, so he's done an 18.9.
Oh wow, so that's actually the first of the 18s we see in TS3 touring cars. We know he can be done, and Renegade looks like he's the man that's doing it so far. You can definitely see, excluding that 1 second penalty that he had, he was actually getting himself a little bit fast, a lot faster compared to what Rick Green and It's Racing can do. As now I say that, Rick Green has actually lost the position to It's Racing, and It's Racing has made that move at the end of turn 1. So Rick Green, all he needs to do is just follow his racing lines, and stay in that slipstream, because it's very important, especially when you're coming down the straights like this. Oh, as he tries to go for an outside move there, so very late on the brakes compared to It's Racing. A little bit more confidence in the Nissan driver on the brakes compared to It's Racing, but it's going to be, with only about 7 laps to go, it's all for Rick Green to lose and try and get himself in that half second to 1 second bracket, and not lose sight of It's Racing.
Yeah, he's taking it to It's Racing and giving him a pretty wild run there. Obviously not super. He doesn't have as much experience as It's Racing does, I don't think. So to take it to It's Racing, I do know he's kind of going to be like, hang on a minute, what's happening here?
Yeah, well, you could say with Rick Green, he runs his own leagues with Trailblazer Esports, and basically what he does basically all the admin stuff, just kind of like what It's Racing does. So you could say in a way it's admin against admin. So It's Racing admin of Trackstars Racing Series, and Rick Green admin of Trailblazers. So it's the battle of the two championships, or the two series between It's Racing and Rick Green. So it's a good little battle confrontation between those two. But Renegade right behind is really closing up a lot in that, especially in that last part in Sector 2. He's closed up a fair bit on Rick Green, and he's looking to pressurize not only Rick Green for P2, but he could potentially have the speed to try and challenge It's Racing for the win.
Yeah, well, anything is possible, you know. Rick Green's lost a little bit of time to It's Racing there, but I'm curious. Ooh, 24k gold with a bit of a disconnect. So that's probably not what he wants at all. Renegade going up the inside here at Rick Green. Wonder if he can make that stick around the inside. He can, but Rick Green's not giving up. He's not.
Oh, a little bit of contact between the two drivers. So the two drivers fighting it out in the championship between ISA Renegade and Rick Green, and Renegade gets himself ahead of the man that took out race victory in race 1 and now demoted into 3rd place. So Rick Green's got a lot of work to do to try and close that gap, to try and stay with Renegade and maybe tag on to the back of Renegade, who can actually probably close up to the back of It's Racing. So it's really important for Rick Green to stay in reaching distance for Renegade, with Renegade to close up towards the leader in It's Racing. It's a lot of work to do for the man in car 69 sitting behind his championship rival in ISA Renegade. So as he looks to go late on the brakes, does he hold that? Can he hold that move? No, unfortunately, the switchback of dreams that Renegade has got is a beautiful switchback move that he's done on Rick Green, but it's actually slowed him down a little bit. It's actually given Rick Green a bit more of an advantage with straight line speed, and he's looking to challenge Renegade for position 2. So championship, this could have championship complications between the two of them, with Renegade in 2nd, Rick Green in 3rd, but with Rick Green still holding a 100-point lead over Renegade at the conclusion of race 1. Renegade will actually bring that gap down slightly at the conclusion of race 2, but it's not over yet. With only about 5 laps to go, it's anyone's game for the victory this evening.
Yeah, definitely. You know, you can't rule out anything at the moment. So I think with Renegade and Rick Green, they just kind of be like, okay, well, It's Racing's not in the title fight. We'll just try and go for best place position here. So, you know, I think they just kind of got to get out of their head that, you know, we're running 2nd and 3rd, but essentially you're really running, you know, 1 and 2 in the championship. So that's kind of probably the more or less the more valuable thing to kind of look at here. But Rick Green looks to have a bit of a slipstream going on to Renegade. Oh, that's a really weird line into that hairpin.
Yeah, I think that Renegade was just parking his car in the middle of the apex there, so it's legal to do, as if you are the car ahead of them, so long as you don't move under brakes. So what looked to be fine for Renegade to keep himself in position 2. So only 2.3 separating It's Racing and Rick Green, with a big gap over Flyboarding and Miller. So Miller's having a very good debut round in the top 5. So 2 top 5s at the end of his first outing in TS3 is actually a very good start for Miller, and a great campaign to start off your racing career in Trackstars. Benstick up into 6th place, a better showing for the M&R driver in Benstick, and SS Boy is actually inside the top 8 as well. So SS Boy is the driver to keep an eye on as well. He's actually sitting 5th in the championships, mind you, DJ. He's actually not far behind Meat and Cheese Pie, and I think at the end of this race we might see SS Boy move back inside the top 4.
Yeah, wow. I didn't know the championships was that close, from obviously, you know, 1 and 2 there, and then, you know, 3, 4, 5. So I think, you know, it's not really over until the last round. Anything's possible. Yeah. But Venti going full send through there. It's not a full send part of the circuit, my dude. Don't try and do that.
It is tricky. You want to go in as fast as you can, but then you've got a wall greeting you on the outside on the second tunnel, in the first tunnel rather. But Venti SS came in behind his teammate in Later Gator, rounding up 9th and 10th place the two Eds Racing boys with Ice and Nightmare in 11th, and then NZL Cowboy in 12th with that 24k gold, the only retiring driver in the field. But now we see Rick Green make the move on Renegade. So Renegade really trying to put up that defensive effort, and it's a battle that's not over between these drivers. Ice Renegade, as he goes a little bit too deep, a little bit too much pressure on himself to go too deep into the fast sweeping S-bends going into the first tunnel, and Renegade, that's cost him dearly, and he's lost ground to Rick Green, and that's actually going to help Rick Green close the gap towards It's Racing, which I believe is only about a second and a half between those two.
Yeah, it's 1.6 to them. So yeah, it's he's pulled that out to 1.8. So yeah, that Lexus in a straight line, that's pretty nutty there. Granted, it's obviously a no tune thing. So I think maybe the Lexus comes to tuition. Oh, he runs really deep there. Looks like he's missed his brake marker there. So he's luckily enough that he didn't put that on the green stuff. But yeah, he's doing a solid job here out front at the moment. Obviously,
yeah.
he didn't start from the back, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to see him, drop down to TS3 and start from the back every race and see what he can do. So he's been up the front so far, and he's doing a solid job. But Renegade as well, 1.6 to Rick Green, and then 7.2 from Renegade to Balding. But yeah, I think Miller's doing a solid job here for what he's doing on his debut.
Yeah, I think he's doing himself a really great job on his debuts as the privateer in the top 5, just getting his head around the Gran Turismo platform after shifting away from a different game. So it's good introduction for his track stars career inside the top 5. And now we see actually Tormentor up into the 7th place, actually get himself ahead of SS Boys. So a nice little recovery drive there from Tormentor after what was our first lap mishaps between him and a couple of drivers at the rear of the field. So Tormentor's doing himself nicely to get him inside the top 8 and in 7th place. But as we get ourselves right up to at the end of lap 11 of 12, I do see SS Boy going really sideways there on going into the tunnel, and Venti's trying to get momentum and trying to overtake SS Boy. After we actually saw Venti do 2 360s on the back straight on the exit of the hairpin, so he really struggles to get that car planted, especially with that Nissan GTR being a little bit more stable compared to the compared to the Lexus and the Honda. So Venti is having his fair shares of struggles in this race, but if he can get himself inside the top 8, that'll be a very good consolation points finish for him. But going into lap 12 and the final lap, It's Racing leads Rick Green and Ice Renegade for the final time. The gap between those two drivers, as I can see on the minimap, isn't too much there. Ice and Nightmares being a little bit of a cork in the bottle, in the way just a slight bit. But we can see there between It's Racing and Rick Green, the gap has closed. It is less than a second here, so the time's running out for Rick Green. All he needs is It's Racing to have a really bad exit going into the tunnel for him to have any chance, but unfortunately that is not going to be the case. And all it takes now is one misjudgment of the braking zone for It's Racing to negotiate that final hairpin at the right time, get the braking distance perfect just before the curving starts is your ideal braking zone. Negotiate that corner. Rick Green a lot later on the brakes there in the Nissan GTR, but it's not enough to make any threats on It's Racing. And the man, then car 95, is going to take the victory in race 2 with Rick Green in 2nd place, taking the round victory. So great. This is a great resurgence from Rick Green to only have P1 and P2 in this championship at Deep Forest Raceway. Congrats to It's Racing and Rick Green, Renegade inside the top 3, and Fly Balding, a nice recovery drive for him to be in P4 after what was a disastrous race 1 for the man in Robbo Sport Racing Car 72. Miller inside the top 5, and Ben Stick, the first of the Hondas, in 6th place.
Yeah, he's solid job there from Rick Green. I'm pretty sure that he'd be happy about that one. Obviously getting the round win there. I think it's hard enough just trying to battle for the front, let alone try and take the win as well. But yeah, solid job there from Rick Green. I know he probably wanted that for a bit of a long time. Venti later gator rounding out position 8 and 9 from the It's Racing boys. So it looks like they got past SS Boy on that final lap. So SS Boy coming in 10th, and NZL Cowboy in 11th, and Ice and Nightmare rounding out the field. Obviously, with 24k gold did drop out. A bit unfortunate for him, but you can't kind of really help GT7 at the moment. But yeah, solid round win there from Rick Green.
Absolutely. So we can't take away the victory from It's Racing himself. So It's Racing doing himself a wonderful job to take victory after starting P2 and getting that move done on Rick Green at the end of lap 5. So beautiful racing between those two. Rick Green was really pressuring the car 95 there, so he didn't really take that victory quite cleanly as we normally see It's Racing back at not at Dragon Trail, back in at Trail Mountain. He actually clean sweeped the race or the rounds with dominant fashion. But now this time around, he got a little bit more pressure from Renegade and Rick Green here at Deep Forest. But it's a good victory, nonetheless. 3 from 4, and you can't complain with that whatsoever.
No, exactly. He's done a solid job there, and those races were a lot cleaner than the races we've had in the past, which is good to see. So, no, we do thank for all those drivers being clean. Definitely makes our life easy as admin with incidents and stuff like that. But yeah, solid job there by all the drivers. But on that note, that is TS3 finish for round 11. So we'll wait and see on how the standings play out after this one. So we'll wait and see that. But until then, we should catch you in just over or just on an hour's time for the round 11 of the TS2 series. Obviously myself and Spud. So until then, go drop a like, subscribe, comment, do what you need to do, and catch us back in about an hour.